So after the 16-bit era came to an end, Sonic the Hedgehog has a pretty bumpy ride, I would say. We have the Sega Saturn didn't do as well as Sega probably hoped it would, as the PlayStation and the Nintendo 64 completely outperforms it, while also lacking Sonic titles, besides the likes of Sonic R and Sonic 3D Flicky Island released for the time. We also have Sonic Jam, which is a compilation that contains the original Mega Drive trilogy, but that wasn't enough. And so Sega then tried again with the Sega Dreamcast, released in 1999, where Sonic made a true jump to the third dimension, and Sonic was back with a bang, and so Sega then released Sonic Adventure 2.
But unfortunately, the damage was already done thanks to the Sega Saturn's failure, along with its competition, the PlayStation 2, the upcoming Xbox, and the Nintendo GameCube. So then Sega's days in the first-party gaming market is over, and Sonic may never see the light of another day. That is until Sega decided to become third party, with their other games coming out with Sony's PlayStation, Microsoft's Xbox, and their arch rivals, Nintendo.
So plenty of other Sonic games have been released at the time, but people have mostly missed the classic 2D style of gameplay. But Sega did release the Sonic Advance trilogy for the Game Boy Advance, so people can have fun with classic 2D action. Then after that we have the two Sonic Rush titles and Sonic Colors for the Nintendo DS, where it was more all about speed or boost to win, as some people would say. But people miss the days where you can play actual classic 2D games on a TV screen. That is until 2009, where the game was announced as Project Needlemouse. That's reference to Sonic's original name, Mr. Needlemouse, in case you didn't watch my Sonic 1 video. I'll leave it to the card up top. Anyway, it's a brand new 2D adventure built from the ground up, coming to the modern consoles. Sonic fans, including myself, were pretty excited about it. Since 2D games are slowly coming back, thanks to the likes of Mega Man 9, New Super Mario Bros. Wii, and even the upcoming Donkey Kong Country Returns. Then in February 2010, the game was then announced as Sonic the Hedgehog 4 Episode 1, and the reaction was pretty apeshit, and I mean not in a good way.
Now, I'm not going to bitch about the minor stuff with modern Sonic's looks for the classic look. I'm more talking about the gameplay footage that came out after the trailer was released, even playing it on the beta version on the Wii.
The first thing I notice is that this game has 5 zones, and most of these zones reuses the same levels from previous games. There are 3 acts per zone and a boss act at the end. Remind me of Sonic CD in that regard. You can choose any stage in any order you want, making it like Mega Man, which is very strange. Though thinking about it makes me recall Knuckles' Chaotix doing the exact same thing, but still odd. Then 2 levels in particular has gimmicks that everyone, even me, raise an eyebrow. First off is Casino Street with the score attack that you can't proceed to the end till you get a required score. And finally, Lost Labyrinth has this minecart where you rotate the screen to move the cart, while also solving puzzles to proceed, and it is really awkward, especially when it involves motion controls. Oh, and the special stage have motion controls to rotate the stage, which I'm glad was removed in the final release. Lastly, that everyone notices Sonic's movement looks sluggish, as if there's no flow. I also question why Sonic will be the only playable character in this, and where's Tails' Knuckles? Also no bonus stage from checkpoints, no gumball machine, no slot machine, not even a glowing sphere. I love that game. So what went on here? Why is the game like this? Well, since the original developers are no longer in Sonic Team, so Sega played it safe and leave the development to Dimps, the same people that made the Sonic Advance trilogy and the Sonic Rush titles. As this explains why Sonic looks stilted, as it almost feels like the Sonic Rush controls without the boost. But the first Sonic Advance controls is almost one-to-one like the Mega Drive games, so I don't know if the original programmer was no longer working for them at that point, but it did make me question why it was like this.
But the real meat of the conversation is that this game was meant to be a mobile game called Sonic the Portable. It was meant to be released for Apple iPhone devices, capitalising success like Angry Birds, etc. But to prove it, check out the Ferris wheel in the background in Casino Street. They didn't even bother taking it out.
So Sega decided that the game will go multi-platform as people asked for more 2D Sonic action after praising the 2D sections in Sonic Unleashed released in 2008. Also, for this game to have subtitled Episode 1 tells me that this was never planned in the first place. So the game was scheduled to be released in summer of 2010, till it was then delayed later in that year thanks for all the complaints I mentioned earlier. Well, they didn't fix everything, just to be clear, but it's better than what we originally given to us. Though that's not saying much, but I'll get to that in a sec. So the game was then released in October 2010 on PS3, Xbox 360, Nintendo Wii and even Apple iPhone, as this version has the same issues as people complain about, like the 2 levels I mentioned. Series veteran Takashi Iizuka has stated that they want to make the game suited for certain experience of whatever version of the game they play. That to me says that they have no faith in this particular version and will just go along with it. But regardless, the game received quite positive reception as a great return to the classic 2D form, and the game was a commercial success, so then they greenlit to work on Episode 2, which I'll get to later.
Now, for this game to be the sequel to one of my favourite games of all time, obviously it lifts some massive shoes to fill. Now, obviously I wasn't expecting it to be better than this, but I do have faith that this is going to be a good time, and at the time played it front to back a few times and... well, let's take a deeper look.
As I said earlier, there are 5 zones in this game with 3 acts and then a boss act at the end of each zone. Now the zones may look exactly like the Mega Drive counterparts, but they are not one-to-one the same. Each zone have their own unique gimmicks in the mix. Like Splash Hill has these vine swinging and zip lines, Casino Street has these card gimmicks which are incredibly brain dead, and then it gives you so many extra lives in this game. So you should never see a game over in this game, believe me. And also have cannon gimmicks from Sonic 3, except you can actually aim where you want to go. Lost Labyrinth has these boulder balancing gimmicks in Act 1. In Act 2, you have to travel through the level in darkness with your trusty fire torch, and then lit up the place with the stationary torches. Or if you don't feel like doing all that, you can turn into Supersonic and light up the entire place. Act 3 is more about finding your way out and flicking switches, so nothing special here. And finally, Mad Gear has nothing really unique here, except for the return of those evil trios from Sonic 2, but they're no threat whatsoever. The final zone, Egg Station Zone, is just a gauntlet of previous bosses in the game after encountering the final boss with the Death Egg robot from Sonic 2. The level design I find overall to be just fine overall. It's more basic than anything else. Now they do have rewards of taking the fastest path here and there, but it does feel good when I do find hidden routes that I could never discover on my own. But the elemental shields are gone from Sonic 3, but the regular shield which is ripped out of Sonic Adventure games is here, despite this game was meant to be a sequel. I know it wasn't supposed to be, but you know what I mean. Boss fights have the same tactics as previous games, but they do have a pinch mode after you hit Eggman enough times, which is nothing special even you give him the chance to do so. The final boss being the only exception, I have to say. Especially its pinch mode where it's acting bad shit insane. Then his last desperation attack where you have to hit him before the floor collapse. The special stages as before makes a return, but it has a Sonic 1 rule where you have to end the stage with 50 rings and then jump in the giant ring. The special stages are like Sonic 1's, but instead of controlling Sonic, you actually control the stage itself. So your goal is to guide Sonic to the Chaos Emerald while collecting rings to open barriers. Your obstacles are once again those red orbs which exit you out of the stage, and a time limit which if you take too long you can collect these time tokens to extend time. These are okay, despite feeling samey. If you feel like you're on the verge of failing, you can just hit start and then hit retry, making these the easiest special stages in the series because of that. Of course, after collecting the Chaos Emeralds we get Supersonic, as I mentioned earlier. It works as well as he did before, as you blaze through stages faster. We're about to go there, aren't we? Okay, let's talk about Sonic himself. So as I mentioned about his movement looks stiff, especially when platforming is involved. So the main aspect from classic Sonic's gameplay is momentum-based platforming, letting the game's speed take control of your movement when you go down slope and take advantage of different pathways you want to take. This game has a fetish for placing speed boosters and springs all over the place, making this game feel like a spectacle, like this game's on autopilot. I don't know if they have the same mentality as the 3D games, which have spectacle moments, but these games were designed with those in mind and let the player take control when they want to do when speed isn't involved. Even when you let go of the D-pad, you go down slopes, Sonic just stops in place and there is absolutely no flow whatsoever. The other method to go fast other than those I mentioned is the spin dash, which works just fine like it did before, and the dash jump just to keep things moving. Not only that, Sonic can climb walls with no effort to gain speed whatsoever. Look, we have Spider Sonic in his upcoming adventure with Miles Morales in the Spider-Verse coming to the theatre near you in summer of 20XX. Now, you heard me mention the dash jump earlier, so that means we get first introduced from the 3D games, the homing attack. It works exactly how it should, but it just is the most unnecessary moveset in the game. I mean, it can take out enemies, item boxes and some practical objects, but there is no other unique ways to use it. In the 3D games, it can be used to go across bottomless pits in order to find different paths or hidden goodies. The only way it kind of does is to use these enemies from Marble Garden Zone in Sonic 3 to take the top path, but other than that, it just can get stale and repetitive. But for a bit more positive things I want to talk about is that this game looks really good. The environments are nicely bright and colourful. Not gonna lie, I think Sonic's model looks a bit too plasticky for my taste. Hell, even different versions of this game has a different shades of Sonic. It's like they can't decide which ones looks good. This game's soundtrack is composed again by Jun Sano. I mentioned in my Sonic 3 video it is his first contribution to the series, but he only did a handful of songs in that game, though the 3D era is where he shines the most. And this game is actually his first classic era music he's worked on. Overall, it was okay. Not one of my favourite soundtracks in the Sonic series. I like most of what was given here, and some of these are either bad or too repetitive. The boss music is the case in point. The music was ripped out of Sonic 3D Flicky's Island, was unused, and it was unused for a reason. So we've basically gone from this to this. Keep that shit in a circus. So as I said, episode 1 did really well, and so about 2 years later, episode 2 would be released. This time we have Tails here, but you can't actually play as him unless you're playing co-op multiplayer. But who would want to play this game with me anyway? You know, I haven't really got into the story of this series. Well, there is barely any story in episode 1. It's just Eggman being a shit again and you save the day, end of. However, in episode 2 it is more involved this time around. Starting in Stardust Speedway, Metal Sonic was still in awful condition after his Tom and Jerry-esque Crash from Sonic CD. Dr. Eggman has reached out to him and managed to recover him with a small portion of his energy, I guess, as Little Planet is making its return to the planet, so Eggman orders Metal Sonic to go back to the base and repair him. After that, he absorbed a glowing orb and it was never elaborated on what that was or its purpose to it. But it powers Metal Sonic up and gives chase to Sonic and Tails. Which brings me to episode Metal, where if you bought both episodes, a short campaign where you control Metal Sonic with 4 levels to play through. They're just at one of each zone from episode 1, only a little bit more difficult. I mean, gameplay wise, Metal Sonic is just like Sonic from episode 1, so there is nothing unique about this mode. Oh well. But why am I killing Badniks? Are we on the same side? But back to the main game. Graphically, I think this is a step up from episode 1. They're going for a 2.5D approach, and I think they got it right. The environments look amazing and the character models and animations look stellar. The music once again is a mixed bag. Some tracks are really good, like all the tracks from White Park, Act 2 and Act 3 of Sky Fortress. Everything else either sounds repetitive or just awful, like Oil Desert Act 2 and 3. So for the core gameplay, Even though you can only control Sonic throughout the game, you can control Tails in your command by using a pretty cool tag team mechanic by pressing one of the buttons. While in the air, you can fly in the air for a short amount of time, though unlike previous games you can't mash the button to stay afloat, but you can only tap the button as sparingly as possible, otherwise Tails just fall down like a rock. But while you're underwater, you can control him like a little underwater submarine shooter. Then while on the ground, and I'm not going to call it what a few people call it, because I like to be as family friendly as possible, you feel me? Anyway, this spin attack can go through anything, even breaking through solid walls to get past the levels quicker. You can also even get through stages faster as much as you like, but be careful with bottomless pits ahead. In terms of overall controls, I find it better than Episode 1. There is a bit more flow to their moveset, though there is still elements where I find I build more speed rolling down slopes by holding right, but still feels pretty good. The humming attack has made a return here. It is somewhat used better here, as a few level set pieces have a very unique way of using it, but other than that, it's still the same way as before. In terms of levels, once again, it's only 5 zones, the same as Episode 1. But to the game's credit, they're not straight out old levels from previous games, the only exception being Sky Fortress, which is exactly like Wing Fortress Zone from Sonic 2. Hell, even the first act is like Sky Chase, only worse, and it goes on for far too long. And I'm pretty sure you know how much I hate auto-scroller levels, so I won't waste my energy. Some of these levels have a very unique level design when it involves traditional classic Sonic style thanks to its improved controls. But like Episode 1, most of these levels are just not that interesting, and I don't know what it is. It seems that they got something going, but it hasn't really picked up, and I want more out of these zones. But there is still no elemental shields here or bonus stages, despite this being a follow-up to a sequel. Special stages are once again handled the same, end the level with 15 rings and then jump in the giant ring. And the special stages are the half pipe from Sonic 2, though this does make use of teamwork here, as at times you get a rubber band to collect rings easier, but I'm still not a fan of the half pipe anyways. But you can take advantage of these special stages where if you're about to mess up, you can press start and hit retry until you get the emerald. Once again you get Super Sonic, though I think this is the first Sonic game where you deactivate Super Sonic whenever you just want to beat the levels yourself, by activating the tag team moveset, which I greatly appreciate. Bosses, good god. Okay, in the classic games you can bop them on the head a few times just to get a few hits in, if you're fast enough. Here, most of these is just a waiting game. It's just Eggman doing things in the background, putting a few attacks and then you can hit him, and it's rinse repeat. Oh, the oil desert boss is the king of this. You have to avoid and climb those falling boxes and then wait for Eggman to expose himself. Now that doesn't sound like much, but it takes up the amount of time and I just want to get a move on! Other than those, the Metal Sonic fight is pretty good. The Sky Fortress one was a technical mess. Oh come on, I touched him! What, did the wings not count?
Video game logic sucks.
Anyway, the Sky Fortress is about to explode, then the team come across Eggman and Metal Sonic escaping. So Sonic and Tails found a pod and then follow them to a newly built Death Egg Mark II that has a little planet inside. The first encounter with Eggman and Metal Sonic is pretty cool, Super Sonic or otherwise. I also love the Metal Sonic race calling back from Sonic CD. And then we have the final boss in this robotic cart. This boss is nothing special, and he never really puts this thing to use apart from rotating the rings. Woo. So after that, the Death Egg Mark II is about to kaput, so Sonic and Tails escapes and conveniently place a skate pod and heads back home. But the thing didn't explode and Little Planet's still inside. And I'm not joking when I say it, this is where the game ends. You may think that I didn't get everything. I got all the emeralds. Now there are red rings in this game, but that's only for an achievement or a trophy, and this does not have the preview with the next episode with a to be continued.
unfortunately, Episode 2 didn't do as well as Sega probably hoped, so Episode 3 never really happened. Unfortunately, this series will forever be remembered for Sega wanting this to be a quick cash grab rather than a true sequel that fans were probably hoping for. Which is a shame really, because I don't find the game terrible, it's perfectly playable, it's just not enough effort was put out for me. I like the improvements Episode 2 offers, but not enough for me to really recommending it to you guys. I mean, you can get it Xbox Series S or X as backwards compatible, and it's also available on Steam. And I don't really see myself going back into these games anytime soon, unless it's for a charity or a mod that fans can improve upon this. I mean, look, this series was never planned in the first place, since they took a mobile game, making it classic 2D gameplay, then Sega went, actually, let us port this to the other consoles and slap Sonic 4 in front of it. But then I do ask myself, if this wasn't called Sonic 4, would I be a little bit less harsh than what I gave this game shit for? And I gotta be honest, I don't think I would, because the core gameplay is still the classic 2D look. I still have very high expectations of this, being a sequel or otherwise, and also visually tiring. But who knows, maybe it's everybody, including myself, was spoilt by the next game I'm going to look at that came out 5 years later, that is a true sequel to Sonic 3, and that game is Sonic Mania, and I couldn't wait to get into that one. And so with all that said, no mug on me today, so I'll see you guys next time. What do you think of Sonic 4? Am I being too harsh, or are you just still indifferent as I was? So leave a comment down below. So if you like this video, give it a like, and if you want to see more, click on the card up top here, there, or wherever they're going to put it now. See a playlist of other Sonic reviews that I've done, including Mario. And if you like those videos, hit that subscribe button and hit that notification bell the next time you want to see the next video. And so with all that said, share this video as well with your friends, family, cousins, or whatever, second cousins, or anybody else for that matter. And so with all that said, I'll see you guys in the next one.